Hi, this is Jenna with Brown Dog Craft Company, and today's video focuses all on mirror stamping and the mirror stamping technique. So there are two ways that I like to do mirror stamping the best. I will show one way here, and I'll show you a second way that you can do it. So we're going to use the Submarine Life stamp set. This stamp set doesn't have any dies, so we do have to do a little bit of fussy cutting, but it's a really cute set. So here are all the colors I'm using, sort of a rainbow of colors today. So I'm going to pull out a small piece of white cardstock, and here in Pumpkin Pie I'm going to stamp the fish, and I'll stamp all the little undersea life creatures in different colors. Real red for the crab. The little jellyfish gets azure afternoon, and then the seaweed is granny apple green and garden green. So once we get these all stamped, we will fussy cut them out. They don't take too long to fussy cut out. Fussy cutting isn't my favorite thing, but I really do love this stamp set. And the punch will punch out the submarine and the little propeller and periscope for the submarine. So what is mirror stamping? Mirror stamping is when you have one stamp with one image. So in this case, we're using the submarine, and the submarine faces the right. Well, I wanted to make another submarine, but I wanted this submarine to complement the first submarine, and I want it to face left. So mirror stamping is used when you have a stamp and you want it to face the other way, the opposite direction. So I made two bonus cards also. I'll show those at the end of the video, but in each of those I chose a stamp that is facing a direction, and then I used the mirror stamping technique to get the stamp to face in the opposite direction. So when you do have it in the opposite direction, you are going to have to fussy cut it out. You could flip it over and try to line the die up upside down from the back of the cardstock, but then the die, it die cuts upside down, and I don't prefer to do it that way. I prefer to just fussy cut out the image that is the mirrored image. So here I have a cardstock panel. I'm putting it in my MISTI, and this is the sand. So I'm going to stamp the sand in some crumb cake. And just one stamp did a really great job here. Okay, so that's right at the bottom. And then once we have the sand stamped here, we are going to do some ink blending today. So for the ink blending, I'm going to use two colors. The first is Coastal Cabana, and the second is Summer Splash. So this does take a little bit of time. You don't have to watch it all on camera today. But basically what I'm doing is I'm starting it off the cardstock with a really light hand and bringing my brush over the cardstock. Since this is a white panel, it does take a bit of time to build up the color. I think I ink blended for probably 5 minutes straight. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to bring the ink all the way down. I'm not going to blend on the sand because I don't want the sand to turn a funny color, but we are going to ink blend right up to the sand. And then Summer Splash is a slightly darker shade than the Coastal Cabana, so I'll take that and ink blend that just around the edges of the panel on the left, the right, and the top. Okay, so that will give us our underwater look. You could start with some Coastal Cabana cardstock and ink blend Coastal Cabana and Summer Splash, and then maybe stamp and cut out the sand at the bottom if you wanted to do less ink blending. But I personally love the ink blending look. So here I am adding some of the Summer Splash on the edges. And again, just using a light hand. And if there's any splotchiness when the ink is still wet, if you give it some time, it will dry back and the splotchiness will disappear. There we go, there's our ink blended panel. Okay, so once we have the ink blended panel all done, I'm going to do the mirror stamping. So this is the regular image. I'm going to take Daffodil Delight ink and I'm going to stamp the image once onto cardstock. That will be our regular image, okay? That's the one that we'll be able to punch out or die cut out if you have dies. Now, in my MISTI, I have a grip mat. If you don't have a grip mat, you would place a piece of acetate or a window sheet down and stamp onto the acetate or the window sheet. It's important that either the grip mat and or the acetate does not move when you're doing this technique. So I don't have any cardstock in my MISTI. I am going to stamp directly onto my grip mat. Now that stamped image has transferred onto my grip mat. If you have a piece of acetate here, it'll transfer onto your piece of acetate. I'm going to stamp twice to make sure I got lots and lots of ink on my grip mat. Then I'm going to take a scrap of white and I'm going to very carefully place that over the stamped image on my grip mat. Once I get it down, I'm not going to move the cardstock. I'm just going to press firmly with my fingers to transfer the ink from the grip mat to the cardstock. And when we pick up this cardstock, we will have a mirror stamped image of our submarine. Okay, it's a really fun technique. There it is. Now this submarine is facing left. The one that you stamp with the stamp faces right. Here they are. Isn't that fun? So you can do that with any image, any stamp that you have. And again, if you don't have the grip mat, you just use some acetate. And when you're done, you just wipe it all clean. So here I can punch this submarine out, but I cannot punch the mirror submarine. We have to fussy cut that one. So here we are, fussy cutting. It's a really easy image to fussy cut. So there we go. Aren't they cute? Now, I would say the submarine, the mirror stamped one, has a little bit of patina on it, we'll call it. It's a really full stamp with a lot of inked space, I guess you could say. So I guess I'm going to say that this one just looks like it's a little rusted, right? Okay, here I have a Waves 3D embossing folder. And that's from the new Spring Mini catalog. And I'm going to line up my cardstock. I don't want to put the sand in the embossing folder because I don't want the sand to have waves. So I'm going to try to line this up straight so I get straight waves. And I will close that and run that through my die cut machine. And when it comes out, it has really amazing texture. So we can glue the periscope onto the original submarine and the propellers on both of the submarines. I did not put the periscope on the second submarine. You could. It would just be looking backwards, which is fine. But just to make them a little bit different, I did one with the periscope and one without. So just using liquid glue for that. Now I'm going to take this sentiment. I've got some Daffodil Delight Daffodil Delight cardstock and some Versamark, and I will heat emboss You Are Sublime with white embossing powder. Now, when I am heat embossing, I like to stamp more than once, so I don't typically use a clear block. I use the MISTI, and I stamp like 4 times with Versamark because I want to make sure that the embossing powder has enough ink to stick to. So once we get that stamped nicely, we will heat emboss that. Oh, and one more thing I want to say about the grip mat. If you're using the grip mat for the mirror technique, you want to make sure your grip mat is very clean. So I cleaned mine with some soap and water and then let it air dry, and then I put it in the MISTI. So, and the same is if you have acetate. You want to make sure it's a clear, clean piece of acetate and completely dry. You'll get the best results that way. Here I am. I'm going to die cut this out with a stitched rectangle. It fits perfect in there. It's almost like it was meant to be. And then we'll start adding everything to the card. So I used a combination of liquid glue and dimensionals, mostly dimensionals because I like dimension on my cards, but you could glue everything down to whatever you like. So we'll add everything on here. The gems I used, I think they're called iridescent foil-backed adhesive gems, and they remind me of sand. They're actually the gems that are from the Kiddin' Around suite, which I think is from last year's Spring Mini catalog. But they just look very beachy to me. So those are the gems we used. I put on 5. I usually put on an odd number of gems or sequins, whatever they are. I usually stick to an odd number. So, and then, let's see, this will get backed. You can see it off in the corner there. I have a panel of Coastal Cabana cardstock. And when I'm all finished here, we'll glue this white panel that's not really white anymore, but this white panel onto that Coastal Cabana cardstock. Now, I'm okay with my images sort of falling off the edge of the card. I'm not going to trim them off. They fit within the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 measurements for the card base. So, but you could cut them off, or put the card in a larger envelope. And we'll tie in the yellow here, yellow submarines. Now you don't need to do the same color sub. You could do an orange sub or a red sub. I mean, they don't have to be the same color. Okay, so put that on our panel. I usually use liquid glue when something has a lot of texture to it. So this panel does, since it's been 3D embossed with that really cute embossing folder. So leave a message in the comments if you have done mirror stamping before, or if you're going to give it a try. Okay, so here's a white insert that I've already stamped on. We'll put that on the inside of our Daffodil Delight card base. I don't use Daffodil Delight very much, but when I was making this card, I think there's a song, the Yellow Submarine song. Is that by the Beatles, or I don't know who it's by, but I think it was the song that my mom liked. So that's why I had to make my submarines yellow. So, and here are those iridescent gems. They kind of look like bubbles. So we'll add those here. And the last thing I want to do is, there's a lot of glass in this card, meaning like there's glass on the submarines, like the windows. So I'm going to take Glossy Accents, which is made by Ranger. It is a glue if you wanted it to be, but it goes on kind of opaque and it dries clear and hard. And it just gives your card even more texture. So I'm adding that on anywhere there would be glass or glare. So all the goggles on all the fish, because it's really funny, fish don't need goggles, but that's why we like card making, right? Okay, and there's the finished card using the mirror stamping technique. Isn't it cute? It's so adorable. Now, I made 2 other cards. I used the turtle from Rainy Days. Is it Rainy Days? Rainy Days, I think. So the turtle, I did mirror stamping for the turtle on the right. And this is Fluffiest Friends. And I did mirror stamping for the, I can't even tell which one is the mirror stamp. The gray cat is the mirror. Okay, so same technique, same process, just followed, just used a different stamp set. And then Fussy cut out the mirror stamp. So I hope you'll give mirror stamping a try. It's one of my favorite things to do. You can really customize your cards and make things that other people aren't making. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again next time. Bye now.